Now it's time to put dowel holes into your sides, all your pieces, to put them together. So basically from the edge bander, turn 180 degrees. This is the machine you're going to see. Turns on, lower switch here, flip it, and a light will turn on underneath it. Now this has a system which I love because the way it's set up right now, the drill bits are going to cut upward, vertically. But if I need them to cut horizontally into the ends for shelves, I simply flip this little switch. This, with air pressure, raises up and now it drills the other direction, horizontally, which is great. Makes life a lot easier. So we're going to start with it down. Either way works, but I always like to start down. We're going to do the sides first. This is the setup for the left and right sides. So we're going to grab one of those. Okay, here's one of those sides. I'm going to lay it down with the holes up like this. So as you can see, here are the holes, the adjustable holes that we made earlier. The edge banding is on this edge because the holes are closer to that edge. Now obviously I need to cut the dowel holes on the same face as these because this is the inside of the cabinet. So this is the bottom piece goes here, and then the two stringers go here and here on the top, here and here, so it's hollow in the top. So I need to turn it so the holes are down. Great, holes are down. And I have the top edge here and the bottom edge here. So just for this demonstration, I'll do the bottom edge first, just because it's a little bit easier to understand. So I put the bottom down. How do I know it's the bottom? Remember the two lines that I have right there from a pencil. Okay, that's the bottom. Now, to cut the holes correctly, I want the edge banding into the fence, just like that, and then push it all the way back. Okay, so it's already set up, it's got to stop in the back, and either one of these is right, so on the next piece, I'll of course have it on the other side for my right side. So you hold it like that, and there's a pedal on the floor right underneath here. Press and hold it down. Those come up and drill, then you let go and they drop back down. And now I have the dowel holes that I need for the next step. Now I'm gonna flip it around, because of course I need them on the top and the bottom. Same setup, edge banding towards the fence, and go ahead and drill. Now in this case, because the top has two 6-inch stringers, remember if I grab those, there's going to be one right here and one right here. So I'll just drop them here so you can see. This one on the front with edge banding is referenced from the front and the holes line up. Fantastic. But the one in back, it's got to be flush on this side. The problem is, this one is set, and that's fine because I can push it up against the fence, but on this one, where do I put it so it's going to be exactly flush with that one? How do I know to put it right here so they're flat? I don't. So here's how we get around that problem. On the top only, on the tops, slide it down and cut the holes referencing from the back side. All right, so now when I pick this up and show you, I of course have doubled how many holes I have in that, but I'm only going to use the front one and the third one to reference from the edge banded edge. And in the back, I'm going to use this front one, if you will, from that edge, and the third one in right here, okay? That's it. None of the other holes am I going to use. So when I cut the stringers, here's one that has no edge banding. This is a back one. I'll go ahead and flip that up, and I put one edge in. Just if it's not edge banded, pick an edge, put it against the fence. And there, that one has the holes. That will line up with those two I mentioned. Now I have to flip it around the other side. Don't flip it over, flip it around the other side so the same edge is against this fence. And now those will line up. So I have one hole is close to that edge, the other side the same hole is close to that edge, okay? We do the same for the other. There's no edge banding on this one. I made two sets. Flip it around. That one is done. This is one of the ones that has the edge banding, and you do it the same way that we've mentioned before. Edge banding in, cut. Flip it around, edge banding in again, same thing. All right, so let's go back to that other side. We'll drop it down, and usually I do all the sides first, and then we'll do these stringers, whatever works. There's my holes. Holes down. Is at the top or the bottom? All right, that's the top. So here's my bottom right here. I see the lines. So if that's my top, edge banding in, drill. Edge banding away, drill. Only the top. We only do that to the top. Then I flip it over. I saw my line, so I know that's the bottom. Edge banding in this case, it's that way. Now that one is done. And again, I put them face to face so that they are as if they were a cabinet. Now, we do the bottom. Here's that bottom piece with the edge banding on one edge. Again, we'll make that vertical again, because that needs to go on the edge. So here it is. There's my edge banding. Edge banding into the fence and cut. Now, because this is so big, the heads may push the board out a little bit because it's just so many drill bits. Hold it in, put some pressure against it so it doesn't push it. If I don't do that, let me show you. I'll just kind of let it push away. You can see that it pushed it way away. Hold it in and just drill again. Good. And that's it. So now we have our holes there that will line up with the original ones we put in the sides. So when you finish with that, do all of your pieces. So I tend to do, as I said before, all of the sides first, then I'll turn and bring that up, and then I do all of the bottoms and the stringers second. Now we're going to cut the back pieces for our cabinet, and then we'll have all the pieces ready to go. Now the back of the cabinets are made from 1/4 inch melamine. So it's white only on one side, but it is only a 1/4 inch thick. And when we slap that on the back of the cabinet, that will end up giving us a perfect 24 inch deep cabinet, which is very standard in the industry. For backs, I usually start with a full sheet, or if you only need a couple, you find pieces here and there. So since all of the lower cabinets are going to be the same height, countertop goes across them all. So there's just not going to be variation in height. I take a full sheet, this is where you got to use your imagination, a full sheet of melamine and just cut it at 30.5 inches, and then I'll slice out whatever widths I'm after, and I can do that with multiple pieces. In this case, because I didn't find a full sheet around, and I just grabbed what I had, and I know it's big enough. So work with me on this one as far as imagining what I'm doing as if it was a full sheet. So first, we need to move this sideways. Then we're going to bring it down to 30.5. Now because I'm cutting from the bottom up, I can use my tape measures right here, and it works great. So 30.5, and that's going to be either my tape measure on the left or the right. They're the same tape measure. One reads here with this stop. The other reads here on the bottom. So if the saw is very low, I don't have to stoop over. I can look right here and get it right. Or if I'm cutting something way high, like a 5-foot tall piece, I don't have to get up really high and get my measurement off. I can use this one right here. So in this case, 30.5 right here, and lock it in. Now, once that's locked, I have found that this works best, especially for the system that we have set up, to cut the back 1/16 of an inch smaller than what is written in your cut list. I found if you cut it right on the money, when we put it in the case clamp and try to put everything together, the back doesn't fit. It seems a little bit too big. So by cutting off a 1/16, the way that we do it in the case clamp, it'll stay square. We'll just slap the back on and the box will be square. So I'm going to go a 1/16 of an inch less than that. So one line down, lock it in, and then we'll make our cut. Now I put in whatever the width is. In this case, it's going to be 18 inches, but follow your cut list and then subtract 1/16 of an inch. For assembly, here are the tools you're going to need. 2 staple guns, and you can always tell they're staple guns because they'll say S on the front. One of them that'll shoot the small 1/2 inch staples, and the other that shoots 1 1/4 inches. So there's a difference. One's green, one's kind of reddish. so you can always tell the difference. You need a bottle of glue or two if two people are doing this, and a mallet or two if two people are doing it. So put these guns aside, start laying out your boards here on the assembly table. Now we can finally start assembling the box. So here's on our assembly table, we have our glue and our mallet. And what we're going to be doing is pounding in a bunch of these little dowels. Now these are different than the ones we use to put together furniture for a different class. And they're going to be always found in this drawer right here on the end. So we're going to put some glue in the hole and then tap the dowels in with this mallet. The question now is, how much glue do you put in? So I'm going to get a little bit closer here so you can kind of see what we're doing. So I took this piece of wood and just drilled these holes just so you can see a demonstration of it. Here's the glue bottle. Depending, of course, on how wide the glue opening is, it's going to vary. The whole idea is to put in, I would say, one large drop of glue. So let me see if I can show you that right here. That much. Go to the next one. We're going to put in that much and that much. The idea behind that amount is that it's going to be covering the bottom of the hole, just enough to cover the bottom of the hole right there. Now, the reason that it's so little is because these little dowels have flutes on them on the side. It's hard to see this close up, but there are little lines on the side that allow glue to squeeze up past it. So this dowel is tight. It's going to fill the entire hole. That's why we have a mallet. So when I put it down there and drive it in, if I can get close enough, you can just barely see there is a little bit of glue squeezing out on the sides. There's a little bit there and a little bit on the top right there. What that means is I got the right amount. So the dowel squeezes that glue out around its own side and up and out, just a little, not enough to interfere with anything or to make a big mess. If I have too much glue, let me demonstrate what happens. So I'll fill that up a little bit. Too much, put that in and give it some taps. Here's what happens. There's so much glue pressure, that's close enough to the edge, that the glue pressure that I struck it down has to go somewhere. There's not enough room for it to go up past this dowel, so it blew out the side. And to take care of that, well, it's either get rid of it or try to tap it back in with a hammer, and it's not very good for the edge. We want to keep that a nice edge. So try very hard to not put too much glue in those holes. All right, so we take our glue bottle and glue in each hole. Now that those are in, and remember, this is the bottom. It's only got one set of holes. A few things to watch out for. If this edge is off the edge of the table right here, and I'm tapping this in, if I hit too hard, you're gonna blow the bottom out. You will. I've seen it many times. So make sure the sides are on the table. If there's absolutely no choice, like for a long, tall pantry cabinet that's hanging off the side, you're gonna have to just learn to be gentle. Just enough to get it seated and stop, and learn to stop. Now to do the other end, I mentioned before that I'm only using hole number 1 and hole number 3, and that's it. So this one and this one. Those are the ones that my stringers are going to be in. So if I lay that down right there, you can see this hole lines up with that one. This one lines up with number 3. And then the same from the back edge, number 1 and number 3. So I don't need to glue any other holes. And again, put your dowels in. Good. All the dowels are in now. So we can just take what's left and put it back in the drawer. Hammer too if you wish, that's fine. So we have our tops, and I know that these go here and here. That one's gonna have to flip over. And our bottom, of course, is going to fit in down here. So it's going to sit like this. Here's where you have a look at the pieces. Do I have bad chewed up edges? Yeah, a little bit. This one's a little bit better. So I want this to go, the best edge to go inside the cabinet. I want the best edge inside the cabinet. So that's going to go down like that. So I will glue that. Flip it over, glue it. Now on these holes, you're going to want quite a bit more glue. You need to save the last one so I can at least try to show you. And I'll try to keep this up off the edge about that much, and it will ease down in there. So that's maybe 4 times the amount you put in the original ones, the first ones. So these holes are deeper. They're a little bit deeper than the length of how much these stick out. So it has a little bit of give. But because I'm setting it down in there like that, the glue, gravity is squeezing that glue down over the dowels, which works for our favor anyway. Do the exact same things on the other side, but remember, that's your edge band. It's got to match up with edge banding here, so I want it that way. Now, I have a good edge here and I have a bad end on this one. There's chewed up all over the place. Might as well put the bad end up where you're not going to see it, so I want it like that. So flip it and glue. What happens if you put too much glue in these? When I put it in the press next, it'll blow out the side of the cabinet. That's what happens if you put too much glue for these, for this part. Then you go back and glue the other ends. Take the other side and get the first dowels in down here. And I'm not going to hit it down yet until I get these at the top set. There we go. Good. Now I can't stress this part enough not to use your hammer to tap these into place. You never want to hit these or the edges with the mallet. You're going to just chip it out and break it. But now that the other side is on, if you must, you can give it a few taps with that hammer. That's okay. Most of the time, I simply just put some weight on it and press it down, and that's fine. There's a little gap here. That's okay. We're going to put it in the press next. So here's kind of the bottom half of this case clamp here, but at least you can see all the buttons here. The ones that you're going to use most often first are this red one. It says carriage on it. By pressing it in, that's going to release the carriage and allow me to move it left and right depending on how wide the cabinets are that you are pressing. So it has to line up with some holes that are designated on the floor, and you'll see them as you're using it. Now I've already measured, took my tape measure and measured the cabinet we built. It's 18 inches wide. So come over here, kind of put your thumb at 18 inches, and I'll get low so you can kind of see. I put 18 inches at the end of this press. This is one of the things that will press in, the clamps. Press and hold, and then just slide in until I hit the other side with my tape measure. Now there's 18, but I can see on my holes I got to back it up a little, and that's where it's going to lock in. Now it's open about 18 and a half, and that's great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. A little bigger than 18. These little boards in here just keep the cabinet up off the floor a little, presses a little bit better. Take your cabinet, stick it in. For base cabinets, I tend to put it about 1.5 inches to 2 inches sticking out the back, and that'll come in handy in just a moment as we put in other parts. But once it's in there and it's clamped, this will guarantee that this cabinet is perfectly square, which is exactly what we want when we put the back on. So to get the presses to work, here's one of them. Make sure to put it about center with that top board. The bottom one doesn't move. So this represents the bottom clamp, and this is the second one that we're using. The other two are there, but I just don't use them often because it's a short cabinet. Turn them both on. You can see that they'll push in with about 40 PSI, and that pressure gauge is just out of camera, just above. So that should push everything together, and now we can move on and put in the rest of the parts. So we're back to the back side of the cabinet, and I cut this piece. This is going to be called a cleat. Cleat is something that goes in the back of the cabinet. Now I want you to look at this. These will be cut in 8-foot lengths, and we edge banded one edge. This is the good side. There's a good edge and a good edge here, but when I flip it over, we cut this on the table saw so you know how much that chews up the edges. That's fine as long as that's in the back. So keep in mind the good face, we want that facing in the cabinet. So I want to see from the back the bad side. So all you got to do to get that measurement take a tape measure, measure inside to inside, and that's 16.5. That's where I got the measurement from. Now take your piece and you cut it on the upcut saw and bring it over, and you kind of stick it in at an angle and then pull it out to get it straight, because it's going to be pretty tight. Stick it in and then pull it out to get it straight. And like I said, it's tight. There we go. And then pull it into place. Now if it falls out, fine, do it again until you get it. There we go. Just tap it in. Okay. The idea, of course, is I want it flat all the way around. So tap it up and it's flat here. Now, take your nail gun, your staple gun, excuse me. Make sure you've got the green colored ones. These are the long ones. The short ones won't even make it through. So take the long ones, staple on the side here, twice, staple on the edge here, twice. This is where it's really important not to miss, or you may have to remake your cabinet. So we've just stapled it in, side and side. Now I can staple it down from the top. I do the sides first because it reinforces it. Because if I staple from the top first, it could push it down. We don't want that. Good. The cleat is now installed. Now this board is where the screw is going to come through into the wall. I need something more than the 1/4 inch back for it to hold on to, and that's what the cleat does. It gives it a brace, something to hold on to that's thicker than that 1/4 inch. Come back around to the front, turn off the clamps and pull it forward. I want the back edge of this cabinet about 1/2 inch inside that side. So I've just shifted it forward maybe 2 inches or so. That's going to really help me as I put on the back. So as we flip around to the back side, you'll see what I mean. And really the last step is putting on the back. I changed the nail gun. So these staples now are the short staples. With the long staples it'll work, but the chances of you missing and it popping out the side are much greater. So we just put in shorter staples, and here we go. The most common mistake with these backs is people put them on like this. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, the white side's facing me, which means it's facing the wall when you put it in. So please try to remember, put the white side into the cabinet so you're looking at the dark side. We'll go with that. And then just staple it on. Now remember, we cut the back 1/16 of an inch smaller than the rest of the cabinet. And that's fine because the case clamp is holding the cabinet square. I'm not basing its squareness on the back. The back just has to fit on. So I typically will pull the back up off the ground, you know, the floor down here a little bit, just a hair, to make sure that this back is not extending lower than the cabinet box. That makes it really hard to get it flat when I'm installing it. So I lift up a hair, 32nd of an inch, and put some staples along the back edge. Put them about 6 inches apart or so. I'd rather you err on the side of too many staples than not enough. Then we can do the bottom. Got to turn the gun upside down. Remember, the bottom is kind of tricky because people tend to take the gun and tip it this way. That will shoot the staple downward and maybe out. And then we got to rip it out of there. Now, while we don't see the staple, it's a problem. We have to remove it and fix it and then put another one in. So make sure you stay straight all the way across. The sides are easy. I can use this edge as a guide for the gun. And then the other side. Remember to take your time. I've done this a lot more, and so I can go a little faster. That was pretty slow for me. Take your time until you get used to it. This is now on. The box is now put together and done. I'm going to pull it out of the clamp here in about 60 seconds, put it on a cart, start stacking them up with all the rest.